Hi, I'm JC, cancer exercise specialist and clinical exercise physiologist. Today we're going to talk about lymphedema and weightlifting. All right, I got my notes here to my left and a little outline here to the right. So let's start off with weightlifting and lymphedema. Now, the most common question I get is it safe? But before we answer, is it safe? I want to talk about what happens if you don't exercise. Okay, so lymphedema is pooling of fluid in your lymphatic system, right? So it's fluid that just get clogged up in your body. So maybe your arm will swell up, maybe your back, your chest. You're going to get pools of fluid stuck in one area, okay? So when you don't exercise, your risk of lymphedema actually increases. Contrary to popular belief, which is to not lift weights, that advice actually increases your risk of lymphedema. So it's safe to exercise after lymph node removal, and it's also beneficial to do it. So it helps with prevention of lymphedema, treatment, and management of lymphedema. Exercise is safe, but that doesn't mean you can just go out and join any class you want. There are still some guidelines to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck, but also the most benefit while keeping yourself safe. The first thing to know is that you want to work with the cancer exercise specialist, somebody who knows about lymphedema, neuropathy, fatigue, and how to help you exercise through different conditions or different things that you're going through. Because after cancer, you have a totally new body that you yourself might not feel comfortable with exercising in. So it's important that they know what you're going through and also know how to help you get better and feel confident in your own skin. I'll give you an example. I actually had an online coaching client who, before they started working with me, they actually met with somebody who wasn't trained. And this person had lymphedema, but they also had bone metastasis. And the trainer did not know how to work with somebody with different conditions. They had flare ups and they actually ended up breaking their collarbone, which had metastasis in it. One of the rules to keep you safe is to make sure that you're not putting load or weight on bones that have metastasis. So, this is why following the guidelines and working with somebody who understands your condition and knows how to help you best is extremely important. So, risk of lymphedema increases when you have more than 5 or 7 lymph nodes removed. If you've had radiation, also increases your risk of lymphedema, obesity, and lack of exercise. So, those 4 things increase your risk. And the things that you're looking for is tightness. You're really going to notice that through your jewelry and your clothing. So if you notice it's hard to take your ring off, maybe your bracelet feels tighter, maybe your chains feel a little bit tighter, or your clothing, your pant size, the bra. Those are very common areas where they feel tighter and they leave a mark. So when you take the ring off, you can clearly see the indentation from the ring or from the shirt or from whatever it might be. That lets you know that there's some pooling happening. So that's one thing to know of, whether you have lymphedema or whether you're at risk for lymphedema. Throughout your day, if you do have lymphedema, you want to look for swelling, redness, tightness, numbness. That can happen anytime throughout the day, but it could also happen through exercise. This is not only specific to exercise. So many times people are worried that if I exercise, you're going to get a flare up. A flare up is what we call whether you have, the tightness, redness, things like that. That's not specific only to exercise. It could happen, throughout your day. So it's very mindful to be cautious of that throughout your whole day. With that being said, the reason exercise is so effective is because it acts like a pump. So every time that you move your muscles, for example, you go for a walk, you do a little bit of bicep curls, maybe some shoulder presses, a bench, or whatever it might be, your muscles squeeze, they tighten and they lengthen, and that helps push fluid across your body. And that's one of the reasons why if you don't move, it increases risk of lymphedema. And if you do move, it helps reduce lymphedema. One thing that's phenomenal if you're a swimmer is that every time you go swimming, the water acts like a resistance against your skin and it helps push the fluid for you, through your body. So that's another great exercise because you're getting the pump from your muscles moving and from the water pushing along the skin. And that's one of the great exercises that you can do if you enjoy swimming. If you don't like swimming, you don't need to get into the water. Um, there's many different ways to exercise with lymphedema or after lymphedema. There's a couple guidelines to be aware of. The first thing is your guidelines right after surgery are different than those after you've been cleared. So the most common mistake I hear is that I can only lift 10 pounds. That's a very common thought. Only the limit when you're right out of surgery. So lifting 5 pounds, 6 pounds, whatever your doctor prescribed you, is your limit right after surgery. Once you are cleared, you can do as much weight as you want. And what I mean by that is that there's no upper limit to how much you can lift. So if you're excited to be a power lifter and lift 500 pounds, go for it. If that's not your goal, that's okay. You can also pick up your baby, grab a gallon of milk, carry luggage. All these things are day-to-day functions that you need just to live a healthy and comfortable life. So you have no limit on how much you can lift after lymphedema. With that being said, right after surgery, number one, listen to your oncologist or your provider. Generally, it's going to be your surgeon who you're going to get your information from. So they're going to give you your limit 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever that might be. Okay. Second thing is you want to meet with a physical therapist who specializes in lymphedema. Now, that's extremely important because they're going to be able to give you lymphatic massages. You can do massage therapy after lymph node removal, but it has to be somebody who's certified under doing lymphatic massages. Because otherwise, if they don't do the massage properly, it could cause pooling. This is for right after surgery or once you've been cleared. It goes both ways on that one. But they're also going to give you a size or a sleeve for your lymphedema. So the area that you have lymphedema in, they're going to give you a sleeve that has a certain amount of pressure, which helps push fluid out from the area, but it also helps slow fluid coming into the area. So that sleeve is going to be very important. And you need to wear that during exercise and generally throughout the day. Now, depending on how better it gets with time, they might give you some changes on when you need to wear your sleeve. But to start off, make sure you're wearing it when they tell you, and especially during exercise. Think about it. Exercise is the pump, so it helps push fluid through. That sleeve is going to create tightness to really slow down how much fluid comes back in. All right. I have an online coaching client who's 67 years old. She has lymphedema on her left arm, breast cancer survivor, and she used to believe that she was not able to lift more than 10 pounds. One of the running jokes we had was that she's like, if my physical therapist finds out I'm doing more than 10 pounds, he's going to have a heart attack, right? Um, anyways, so sometimes your physical therapist might not be up to date on how much you can really lift, but there is no limit. And actually, to that physical therapist's surprise, her lymphedema greatly decreased throughout the program. So she's still lifting weights, lifting more than she's ever lifted before in the past. She has no limits on how much she can lift, and her lymphedema has greatly decreased. So that's one of the benefits of lifting weights. Okay. Now, when it comes to lifting more weight over time, that's when you want to focus on 1 to 2 pounds per week. Okay. Now, you can increase more than that if you're stronger. Maybe you've lifted before. You can increase 3 pounds per week or something like that. But generally, what I like to focus on is on reps. If you can do 15 reps of something, then you bring down the reps. Let's go 12 reps and you increase the weight. Once you get to 10 pounds, you increase the weight again and then you go from there. Okay. Generally, it's 1 to 2 pounds per week. That's going to vary by person. If you're older, you've never exercised before, you can even do half a pound per week. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Now, this is only for your upper body, mind you. Your legs, they can lift as heavy as they want. You can go up to 5 pounds per week increase, or 5 pounds every other week, however you feel comfortable. Caveat being that depending on the exercise, if you're doing, for example, a leg press where you're just holding on to the machine and you're pushing your legs away, you have no limit. If you're doing a squat where you're going to have to hold a bar behind your back, like a back squat, you need to make sure you have the range of motion in your shoulders to hold that bar there, and that you can comfortably hold it without any aches or pains. Meaning, if the bar goes slightly behind you, you still don't have aches and pains. But if you find it challenging to put that bar behind you because it creates pains on your joints, then that's not the best exercise for you, even though it's a leg exercise. Same things goes with the deadlift. As long as you can comfortably get in and out of the position with, you have no limitations in your upper body, then you can do that leg exercise. Now, I know that life happens, things get busy, you go on vacation, maybe you get sick. What do you do then? So the guidelines recommend that for every 1 week you take off, lower your weight to 2 weeks before. So what I mean by that is, let's say this week you get sick, you take a week off. Then you would look at how much weight you were lifting 2 weeks ago, and that's going to be your starting point. Now, that might feel like you're taking one step forward and two steps back, but your muscles are going to recover really quickly. That muscle memory kicks in, and it's not going to work that way, even though it might feel that way. Obviously, I do all of this for you. When you join online coaching, I do the thinking for you. So that way you don't have to. All you're doing is showing up. If you have a vacation, I program your exercises for you. So that way you don't have to backtrack 2 weeks. So you always have something to do, and I program that for you. If you're sick, then I show you how to change your exercises to make sure that you're feeling better while you are sick. It's basically a program that's all inclusive. You don't got to think about, you just show up to your workout and you feel better and you get the benefits. If you're doing it on your own, these are all things to consider throughout. So that's why I'm going through this. There are also common mistakes that I've found. One of the most common mistakes that I find is that when people hear that exercise is safe for them, they just go do any exercise. Join the fitness class at their local gym, start with their routine that they used to do, or ignore the exercises that they should be doing. So let's start with the first one. The most common thing I see is joining a local gym to do their classes. There is nothing wrong with that. I think it's great for mental health benefits. I think it's phenomenal for getting you moving, getting you active. I love it. The challenge is that those classes are not tailored for you. And what I mean by that is, if you haven't exercised before, if you don't have a previous history, even if you went through the chemotherapies and you didn't exercise, that exercise is going to be feeling very, very intense. Your body's not going to take it well. It's very high intensity, a very high impact sometimes, lots of repetitions. If that intensity is too much for your body, you're going to get those side effects. The aches and pains, the swelling, the nausea. Even if you're able to do the exercise, you might feel mentally and emotionally like you're struggling to go through the class because you feel behind. So I'm not a big proponent of doing those classes until your body's fit enough for it. Now, if it's a low intensity, mobility, stretching, yoga class, that's absolutely fine as long as your body can handle it. But generally, you do want to avoid lots of repetitions. Think 50 to 100 reps. So no CrossFit, no high rocks. If you love those, that's absolutely fine. But meet with somebody who's going to help you get there instead of just jumping into those high intensity classes right away. The second thing that I see is that people don't do the exercises that they should do. And I'll go over that here in the best exercises to go over, so stay tuned for that. But what I mean by that is, a lot of times people ignore mobility exercises. And your range of motion after cancer is extremely important. A lot of times you have aches and pains, yes, because of the medication, but also because your muscles and your joints aren't ready for the exercise. So lengthening your joints, Having mobility in your joints, your knees, hips, necks, shoulders, is extremely important for not just blood flow, reducing pain, but also for helping fluid go through the body better. You have more range of motion, right? You're going to have a greater stretch, more of a pump that goes through your body. So, doing ranges of motion exercises are extremely important. Think knees, hips, and shoulders. Oh, and back. And then obviously people just don't exercise at all, and that's a big no-no, right? You want to make sure you're at least doing some movement. So if you don't know where to start, walking is a great place to start. Doing some wall push-ups are a great place to start, just to get some movement in. And in terms of the best exercises to be doing, it really depends on where you have lymphedema. So there are women who do get lymphedema on their back, and one of the best exercises for it is doing a lat pull down. So you want to go wide grip, bringing it to your chin, and slow on the way up. You're literally going to feel that fluid go across your back, and that's going to help reduce lymphedema there on your upper back and your lats. So the armpit area as well. Great exercise to do. Another one is if you have lymphedema on your forearm, your arm, doing hammer curls. So a hammer curl is literally like if you have a hammer, right? So your palms are facing towards you, and you're doing a bicep curl, but with the palms facing towards each other, right? Moving of the forearm is going to help target the forearm and the bicep at the same time. So the hammer curls are great for lymphedema on your forearm and arms. And then lastly, if you have lymphedema on your chest, once again, also shoulders or armpit area, doing a chest fly is going to be a great exercise to do. Now, you can do those sitting down on a machine. I usually recommend doing them while you're lying down on a bench, because you can get a greater stretch and range of motion, right? And you also got to fight gravity a little bit more on the way up. So you get a little bit more pump, a little bit more stretch, more lengthening of the joints, shoulder joint, and chest. And that's one of my favorite exercises to incorporate. And I hear incredible progress with those 3 exercises being included. Now, I do have how-to videos. So if you have no idea how to do these exercises, you can go on Oncology page, and you're going to be able to type in how to do a lat pull down by JC, and you're going to see those exercises. I have all 3 of those on my YouTube. Talk about is skin health. In this case is very important. Make sure you are moisturizing. Also protect yourself from any nicks or cuts. I do jiu-jitsu, and I have like abrasions in my hands. So that's something you want to avoid, because your skin can get infected. So make sure you moisturize, protect yourself from cuts. If you find any redness or swelling, definitely go talk to your provider, because you want to avoid infection. I also recommend, if you go to a local gym, washing your hands afterward. People are sweating. Sometimes they might cut themselves, hold on to the dumbbell, and can get blood on it, whatever. You want to make sure you're practicing good hygiene in these cases. So definitely wash your hands after lifting. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe so you're always up to date on the latest news on health and fitness after cancer. Take care.